Hi, and welcome to Section 2, Server-Side Development with Node.js. In this section, we will begin to write small programs to learn Node.js. We will create a simple web server, learn about NPM, and the basics of a very popular web application framework, Express.js, such as routes, HTTP request, and response objects, and so on. Now we move on to the first video of this section that modifies our first Node application done in Section 1 to accept request parameters. In this video, we're going to take a look at the HTTP request object using which we can pass a parameter to a URL. The web server will then extract the parameter and return an appropriate response. Through this example, we will also learn about local variables in a callback function. Let's go back to the terminal. Create a new directory, 2.1, and change the working directory to it. As we will build on the example in video 1.5, let's copy the files created in the previous video so that we don't need to start from scratch. Switch to Sublime Text. Open the 2.1 folder. Okay, this index.js is the one we built before. As we see here, the callback function, the first parameter is the HTTP request object that is received by the HTTP server. Instead of a static URL, we may pass parameters using the query string that can be extracted from the request object. Let's do that. Node provides a module called URL, which gives us a handful of functions to manipulate the request object. So we import it here. The URL variable is defined in this program file, and so its variable scope is global. It means that URL can be accessed throughout the program. Inside the callback function, we can create variables to facilitate the development of program logic. We can access the global variable URL in the callback as well. For example, here we create a query object variable to extract the query string from the request URL by calling the parse method of the URL object. This query object variable is only seen in the callback function. That's why it's called a local variable. We then create another local variable, greeting, to hold the content passed from the request query string. The parameter to be passed is named greeting, and so we may simply retrieve it from query object. The URL module makes the query parameters as properties of query object. We can use the double pipe operator here. It is a shorthand to make query object.greeting optional. It is equivalent to if query object.greeting is false, that is, there is no greeting, the default greeting string will be used. Now we append the greeting to the first Node app statement. Save and go to the terminal to run the server. Type in node space index and press enter. Switch to the browser and go to localhost 8080. As no greeting parameter is given, the default greeting is appended. Check what happens if we add in greeting equals hello world in the address bar. See? Hello world is appended this time. So, in this video, we have made a simple web server to accept a greeting parameter from the URL query string and give back different responses accordingly. We also learned about global and local variables.